You're ready.
Hi, my name is Sophia, and today my presentation is titled Young Men in the Jungle, a comprehensive study of integration into Singapore's national service. So just to give you some background, Singapore harbors ethnic and racial diversity in its 5.4 million person population. In recent years, Singapore has seen an influx in immigration, and a subsequent anti-foreign sentiment has arisen towards such newcomers. Given the government's tight control on the Singaporean press and media, people with such sentiments have had to find alternative outlets to express their views and opinions on the matter. Many have turned to blogs and other online forums to do so. Multiple forums have addressed the popular national service issue and the frustration that Singaporeans have had when permanent residents renounce their PR status, and in the last 5 years, 2,600 males have actually renounced their PR status in 2014. National service is a requirement by the Singaporean government for all male Singaporean citizens and second-generation permanent residences. And according to the Defense Minister, 7,200 PRs have served in NS in the last 5 years. Now, NS is viewed as a unifying experience that all male Singaporeans, regardless of their race, social status, or sexuality, have encountered throughout their lives. However, non-Singaporeans who either attain PR status after they were above the required age to serve, which is 18, or simple work pass holders who have lived in Singapore for a large portion of their life are unable to relate to such an experience. According to an IPS study done by the International Policy Institute at NUS, there's an incongruence in the views of importance of NS and integration between foreign-born citizens and Singaporeans, and that 1/3 of second-generation PRs gave up their PR status before serving NS, and that the majority of Singaporeans believe that NS is an important part of integration. Now, why is the NS experience so important? It's a sacrifice on both the servicemen and their families for 2 years, and it creates a brotherhood. However, little research has been conducted beyond a statement that it may be an indicator of assimilation, as well as to what extent and how this may affect assimilation, if it does at all. The purpose and significance of my research is to discover if a lack of integration exists because of the lack of an NS experience, and if such attitudes may be a potential deterrent to people coming to look and work in Singapore in the future. So this brings me to my research question. To what extent does the lack of a national service experience for men residing in Singapore between the ages of 18 to 35 years hinder the assimilation of these non-citizens, which is defined as work pass holders and PRs, into Singaporean society? My thesis, which I didn't make a slide for because I didn't want to have all the words up there, is given the increasing anti-foreign sentiment in Singapore, this paper explores if that sentiment transcends specifically between men without an NS experience. The hypothesis of this paper is that the lack of an NS experience does hinder assimilation into Singaporean society, and that this lack of a common experience is a deterrent to people coming to look and work in Singapore in the future. So that was my hypothesis. My method, I had 2 parts to my method. I followed sort of a critical discourse analysis, which defined by UCLA database explains that critical discourse analysis focus on how social relations, identity, knowledge, and power are constructed through written and spoken texts in communities, schools, and classrooms. So I wanted to explore the sentiment in the media towards men that lack a national service experience to see what proportion is corrosive by following this critical discourse analysis method, in addition to conducting qualitative interviews. So the first part of my method is collecting quantitative data through codification. So what I did was I went through and I found articles that were corrosive in nature and tried to find, I went through and found articles about NS and tried to find out which proportion of them were corrosive. And the purpose of this was to discover if there is a sentiment towards those that lack an NS experience in the widespread media, and later compare this to the opinions of individuals who have actually served in NS. And I found this method from my anchor paper, which was written by a master's student at the Cardiff University, who followed this sort of coding sheet to go through and rank the articles. So that's the first part. And then the second part of my method, which is the bulk of my findings, comes from qualitative interviews. And so my targeted demographic was both current and ex-NS servicemen ranging from 18 to 35 years old. And so I was intending to collect anecdotal and qualitative data on NS experiences and integration to Singaporean society. You may be wondering why I chose the range from 18 to 35 years. NS service starts at 18, and I need to narrow the range down to create a focus group, so to speak, so I capped it at 35 years old. And also, it's important to note that social status and other factors were not considered in the people that I chose. Now, so far, I have collected data from, I have interviewed 4 individuals, one who is an older ex-serviceman, 26 years old, who served in NS for 2 years and continues to go back for the past 6 years to go and do his yearly briefing. And I formulated, when I spoke to this individual, I came up with 2 additional questions that allowed the individual to reflect on his service in the past, as well as his current opinions, a reflection on his experiences. And regarding the current NS servicemen that I talked to 3, 2 of whom were ex-SAS students. One was an ex-Jakarta International School student. 2 of them were Singaporeans, and 1 of them was a PR. So I have sort of a range of different backgrounds and the people that I spoke to. Now my rationale behind this was that I was able to obtain a variety of different ages and citizenship backgrounds, and some people actually, the person who peer edited my paper brought up the fact that there could be potential bias because I know these people, I know 3 out of 4 of them, but I personally think that since I am a female, although I'm PR, but I'm a female, I do not have to serve in NS, so I feel like I come from a neutral standpoint and neutral perspective on this issue. And ideally, I would like to speak to one more older generation ex-NS servicemen, because I found that the perspectives are quite different. They differ a lot significantly between the age groups. So, yeah. So why is this method effective? I cannot survey the entire Singaporean population, so I need a focus group, and that was my focus group. And it allows me to provide insights into the views highlighted in the media, as opposed to the views of individuals and how this may affect assimilation into Singaporean society. So these are the questions that I asked them, but I will focus on them in my findings section. I'm not going to go through, I picked out 5 definitions that I thought were the most important in my paper, and I highlighted them here, but I don't want to go through and read them because it'll take a bit of time. But what I want to say was I did define them early on so that it's clear throughout the paper the meanings of these words. Now, onto my findings. Regarding the interviews, I followed like a 4-step approach, so to speak, to sort of be able to find out about this issue. So my first step was to learn what NS comprises of and learn about the process, just so I have some background information. And so I first asked my individuals to describe a typical day in NS and find out why it is a unifying experience. And I learned that NS was divided into 3 main groups, and people start with basic military training. Everyone has to go through that, and then they go off into their separate vocations later on. Step 2 was to ask and find out if there actually was perception that there was an anti-foreign sentiment in Singapore. And so I asked, to what extent do you think an anti-foreign sentiment is present in Singaporean society? And I actually got mixed opinions, which I was a bit shocked about. 2 said that there wasn't any. They believed that there wasn't any. 1 said yes, and another discussed the appearance on the surface level, and that was actually the older servicemen, which is interesting. It was a different perspective. I'll just go through and say that the person that said it was on the surface level is actually kind of aligned with my project, which was nice, because he said that from the social media, it is seemingly so that there is an anti-foreign sentiment in Singapore, but based on his personal experience, he didn't feel that the sentiment was strong. But he said that perhaps it was due to his bias in his education level, so dependent on that. But he did say that ranting on media is a cheap and easy outlet for an individual's problems, so I thought that was pretty interesting. Step 3 was to learn about the impacts of NS and figure out what impact, if any, has national service had on relationships with other Singaporeans, and to what extent did they believe that NS was a unifying experience. And interestingly, 3 out of 4 said it was unifying, 1 even describing it as the most unifying experience that he's ever had in his life, which was quite interesting. They talked about how it helped unite multicultural Singapore, and about the brotherhood aspect, about how it creates this camaraderie and unity because everyone has to go through similar difficult situations. One of them said it can be dependent on the people factor, as in who they're with. So that the individual said that bringing diverse people together could be both a good and an experience for some because of barriers such as the education gap, or even he mentioned areas of places where they grew up in Singapore. And so, yeah, that was interesting. And then my last step was to learn if there were any negative attitudes towards those lacking an NX experience. And I did get mixed findings on this, which was also very interesting. Two believe that Singaporeans have a responsibility in Singaporean society to actually serve in NS, and that those that don't show a lack of patriotism and respect for their country, essentially. But there were no negative attitude towards those who were unable to, whether it be for health issues or simply age. But they did say that they did miss out on an important aspect of NS. And I thought it was interesting, one of the individuals even said that for his father, many cultural aspects specific to military life that many he said that he will never understand, and that that many of his friends do talk about their past in the army, so he does feel sort of left out with that. Others said they don't look down, they just view it as, don't look down on people who haven't served, they just view it as a huge waste of a good opportunity to improve yourself. And then another said, the older one in fact, said it really depends because of globalization. Singapore is a cosmopolitan country with different races and foreigners from many countries, and so it is inevitable to meet people who haven't served NS, and that's okay, essentially. However, he said that the least non-Singaporeans could do is be appreciative and respect the country that they reside in. Regarding the coding aspect, I actually left my prep journal here, so I filled out 3 different sheets, but I haven't analyzed that, so I can incorporate that later. However, from my interviews, I did come to a conclusion, and my conclusion is that while NS is a unifying aspect that does indeed help assimilation into Singaporean society by uniting people from different backgrounds with a common experience, it does not significantly hinder the assimilation of non-citizens into Singaporean society, which I was surprised about as it was contrary to my initial hypothesis and assumptions. Now the implications of this, minimal extreme negative sentiments towards those that lack an NS experience actually exist, and as a result, the lack of an NS experience should not deter males who are looking to come and work and reside in Singapore in the future. While an NS experience definitely aids and eases assimilation into Singaporean society, it is not necessarily essential to the process. And potential consequences and future inquiries of mine. So I can put the question. Besides the fact that PRs do receive extended benefits from the government, if NS is not essential in assimilation into Singaporean society, why should PRs then be required to serve? And that would, if I were to look into anything in the future, I would go down that